Stay tuned and let's check out this Marvel Legends Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. Ciao and welcome back to the channel, Dan Who Reviews. As always, my name is Dan W. Make sure you are following me on Instagram at It's Dan Who, and remember you can now hit that join button and become a channel member as well. Either show some love or join the members club. Much appreciated. Today we are checking out the Marvel Legends Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. Now this one is special as all summer long we have been celebrating 60 amazing years, and that is because Spider-Man debuted in Amazing Fantasy issue 15 back in 1962, and 60 years later we still love Spider-Man, and Hasbro have gave us a version of Spider-Man to accurately represent his first appearance. Now, it's not the first time we've got this version of Spider-Man in figure form, but it's the first go from Hasbro, and it is on a new pinless body. So I'm curious to compare it to some of our previous Spider-Man figures. But we get the Amazing Fantasy logo on the front of the box. We even get the sort of comic image from the front cover of Amazing Fantasy number 15 here on the side. A nice tribute, a digital render on this side. You guys know how I feel about the plastic packaging. We can plastic-less packaging. We can do better than this. Hopefully there's not a potato in there. On the back of the box, we're getting a digital render. I do like how it shows you what accessories come with the figure. We get all the hands we need, some web effects, and another sort of web strand, I guess. No cross-sale, no bio, but as I said, Amazing Fantasy number 15, debut of Spider-Man in Marvel Comics. Let's open him up. Here we have Spider-Man out of the packaging with all of his accessories on the table. Now, I did do a quick QC check, and it does seem like all my web lines are where they're supposed to be. I do have like a tiny little scruff right on his stomach, so it sort of looks like my Spider-Man's got a belly button, and I'll show you that when I zoom in. Other than that, though, I think in the community, this guy is going to be sort of named the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man, as he is the first to be on this sort of new body that is completely pinless, and it does look good. It does look like it's going to have a great range of articulation, as it has all the points that we have come to expect. I don't like these web effects massively. I'm not usually a fan of the webs under the arms, as they always fall out. However, for the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man, I do think they're important as they represent that first appearance. And we do get 4 separate sets of hands, which is nice to see. 4 unique pairs. We get fisted hands, swipping hands, wall calling hands, and as an added bonus with this guy, we get gripping hands. So we can actually hold onto his web, which is good to see. Other than that, though, it is Spider-Man, how he appeared in that first comic. And yeah, it's nice to see that sort of design, but with all the modern traits being pinless and all the articulation and whatnot. So of course I'm going to get into some major comparisons in this review, but first let's just take a closer look. Starting up top with Spider-Man with the Steve Ditko inspired head sculpt with the thicker black outline around the whited out eyes. Now you only get one head sculpt with this figure, but it does work for that first appearance. It is on a disc and hinge, so you can get him burying the chin and looking up really far. I know some people prefer the double dumbbell, but I don't mind this at all, especially for a Spider-Man figure. We also get the very simplified logo on the front of the chest. Now, over the years, this has been upgraded, advanced multiple times, but back in the day, it basically was a blob with legs. It sort of looks like a turtle shell, doesn't it, with multiple legs. Again, on the back, you get that very simple logo in red on the black. And I say black, but it sort of is more of a very, very dark navy blue rather than like a straight up black. But again, accurate to those first appearances. You get no pins in the elbows, double jointed pinless elbows, which makes such a difference, not only to the aesthetic, but on the inside here, you don't get those big pins, those red pins that we would usually see sticking through. So again, makes a difference there with some great range. Same down here on the knees, double jointed, pinless knees. And I'll zoom out again, great range there as well. Ankle pivot rocker, you get the swivel at the boot, of course, hidden in the design of the Spider-Man. You get the sort of waist cut has been moved up to a diaphragm cut with a ball joint now, so it allows you for some tilt and swivel, and then the sort of ab crunch has been moved down to the sort of waist area, which allows for some great posing. Like Spider-Man can literally look underneath his legs like that, so that is really good. And again, he can be the limbo king, as he can lean all the way back like that. So yeah, some great range for getting them into some web swinging poses, that is for sure. I also wanted to point out that my web lines are clean, but on my belly I have like a tiny little nick there in white. Can you see it? So it sort of looks like my Spider-Man has a bit of a belly button. So that is like the only sort of paint blemish that I can notice. Otherwise, I don't have any complaints, but that doesn't bother me massively, to be fair. You've got the thigh cut up there as well. Now, I will do a comparison with the other Spider-Man in regards to heights, and I will get that tape measure out, so start to get excited about that. But yeah, just first impressions on this figure. I really like it. The pinless, the articulation, and just the overall character design is definitely a great representation of that amazing Spider-Man first appearance from the comics. So the figure's great, but to accurately represent that amazing fantasy Spider-Man, we need to add the webbing nets that go underneath his arms. Now, we've seen this gimmick before with Marvel Legends, and it never works that well. So let's see how it works here. So on the inside of the arms here, you can see a little hole that we're going to use to plug in. That is on both arms. Now, there is a particular shape on these which match up with the web effects that we get. So let's try this. I'm going to try these pair first. Now, you get two pairs. This one's a more natural fit, so there's that there. And again, it should be very simple to just plug these in, just give it a little bit of pressure, and they fit in pretty tight, to be fair. And then you spin it around, and there's our look from the back. Now, if I spin him this way around, we should get some natural looking web netting that sits under the arms. Now, as I said, this is the natural sort of look. And it sort of works, not going to lie, it does sort of work, but I do imagine as I start posing this round, they may fall out, so that's frustrating. So if you're going to have your Spider-Man like just neutral, standing there on the shelf, then those subtle sort of web netting effects are going to look fine, I think. But if you want to get them into some dynamic poses, you may run into some difficulties. Now, they are translucent, but they've got a little bit of darkness to them as well, so you can see as the light hits them. But there you go. From the back, you can see them better from the front, but they're subtle from the front. But let's try the other ones. Now, I think I've done it right, but if I'm wrong, the comments will tell me, I'm sure. But I have tried to match up the holes properly for these web effects, and it seems like this is the case, where they sort of flare out a little bit more for a more dynamic pose on the shelf. So from the front, you can see them sort of sticking over the shoulder, but that is not because you're not going to have them standing neutral like this, are you? You're going to have them posed out, and the arms are going to be moving around a little bit more. So as I said, if I swing out the arm like that, it does work. I'm just scared they're going to fall out like with a little bit of pressure. So again, I'm just bringing out the arms. I'm sort of just testing this while I'm on camera. So they do stick out, but I'm just, again, like as soon as I start moving them, like the arms come all the way out. There you go. So I don't know, does it poke out like that? I guess it's hidden when they're there. The arms do have a great range of articulation, to be fair, but when you've got these web lines on them, it does sort of limit the look. But I guess that's what we're going for here, right? Big open palm, big open wide sort of swing with the web effect sticking through, and then on the back there, you can sort of see them touching each other to sort of still reveal the logo. So I think that's it, but I could be wrong. But just not a massive fan of the plastic web netting. I do think on this particular character design, they should find a way to do some soft goods just under the arm. But yeah, it sort of works. Back to his hands. As I said, he has 4 unique sets of hands. So we start with some fisted hands, some swipping hands, some more expressive ward crawling hands, and finally a set of gripping hands. Now this is so he can actually grip his web effect that comes with the figure. Now this is like a translucent white, so I apologise if it fades away in the background, but we have seen this before, made of a very soft plastic. I can literally crumple that up in my fist, but it has this sort of hook on the end. Now Spider-Man doesn't really need to make himself a little swing, but for the sake of action figures, I guess you need something to grip. So there you go. So if you want to dangle him from the shelf, he can sort of grip on to his web effect just like so, using the gripping hands. That is what it is there for. That's the type of pose you are trying to achieve on a shelf. You can get him dangling upside down on his web line, and it does make for a more fun way to pose our multiple Spider-Man in a collection. So there you go. There we have Spider-Man dangling on his web. Okay, so let's swing into some comparisons, pun intended, as on the table right now we have the best Marvel Legends Spider-Man action figure. But which one is it? Is it the Spinneret 2-pack Spider-Man or the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man? Both of these are on new Marvel Legend bodies, and both of these are completely pinless with a great range of articulation. However, there are some differences between the two. First things first, the height. Here we have the tape measure. As you can see, Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man is about 6¼ inches tall, where the Spinneret 2-pack is barely 6½, just under 6½ inches tall. So the first difference is scale. Putting them back to back, you can see the height difference there as well. But it's not just height, also proportionately, the Spinneret 2-pack is a little bit broader, a little bit thicker. He's got a bigger head, bigger chest, and there's also more like musculature sculpted onto this body compared to the sort of streamlined smoothness of this one. So I do think that the Spinneret Spider-Man body will be reused for other Marvel characters for the future of Legends. Time will tell, but there are differences between the two. They also share a lot of the same articulation. The difference in articulation though, however, is this guy has a dumbbell joint in the neck and the head, he has drop down hips, and he has articulated toes, where this guy has none of those things. However, because this one is proportionally a little bit smaller, it sort of doesn't need those things and can still achieve the same range of articulation as this guy can. So in regards to articulation, both of them are pretty good. When answering the question, which is the best Marvel Legends Spider-Man, I do think it's going to fall down to personal opinion, personal taste and preference, as there's no wrong answer here. Like, that's the magic of collecting and the beauty of action figures. It's genuinely up to you. Which one do you think is the best? Because there isn't a wrong answer. Both of these are great Marvel Legend Spider-Man figures. Two of the best. That is for sure. So make sure you let me know in the comments below which of these two Spider-Men you prefer. Do you prefer the first appearance of Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man, or do you prefer the slightly bigger Spinneret 2-pack Spider-Man, the more modernised look, if you will? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, there are other Spider-Man Marvel Legend bodies that still hold up in a display. So here we have the Kid Spider-Man book. I got rid of my Peter Parker, but I've still got Miles. Then we got the Pizza Spider-Man, who was once the be-all, end-all. Retro Spider-Man, the updated pinless Retro, which is now the Spinneret 2-pack, and then the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man that we're looking at today. So both of these on the end are pinless. So you may prefer one of the others. And again, there's no wrong answer here. It is personal preference. So if you think one of these are the best, let me know. If you like this Amazing Fantasy body, but you want to try some different heads on this figure, then you can do some head swaps, no problem. I've put on the Raft Spider-Man head sculpt, which is very McFarlane style with the wide white eyes, which is a vast contrast to the thin eyes of Steve Ditko. So you do have different options with head swaps. Now, none of the reds are like a spot on match, but for a display, you can hardly tell. So you have options there. Continuing with comparisons, obviously I could have been here all day comparing Spider-Man to all the other versions of Spider-Man we have from the Spider-Verse. However, I've literally just rebuilt my Spider-Man display, and I really didn't want to start taking off all those villains again. So instead of that, here we have two generic Marvel Legends, as we have the new Vulcan base body for Marvel Legends, and then we have the 20th anniversary Captain America. And it still gives you a good sense of scale next to Spider-Man here, as he is a little bit shorter, which is fine. And since this is an anniversary edition of Spider-Man, here we have another Marvel character also celebrating an anniversary this year, as we have Ghost Rider, a character I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot more in the near future. Haslab. And I've always got time for the Who Crew, so here we have the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man compared to White Rabbit, Tigra and Frogman. And last but absolutely never least, here we have the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man compared to Captain Britain and Hal Fire Hank. Hey look, it's my friend and yours, Brandon, aka Hero.Collections, who has just started his YouTube channel. Go and show him some support and subscribe. We'll put the link in the description. So, final thoughts on this Marvel Legends Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. Now, first things first, Happy birthday, Spider-Man. You look great for 60 years old, mate. You really do. And it is nice to have a figure in this collection that accurately represents that first appearance in the comics, because it is iconic at this point. Now, I know Toy Biz give it a go, but let's be honest, this Hasbro one is much better. It is completely pinless. We do get all the right sets of hands. The only thing they haven't quite perfected yet is the web under the arms. Like, maybe soft goods would be the way to go there. Now, the two plastic options we have here don't fall out as much as I would, but it does limit posing and they are a little bit fiddly, so they've not quite perfected that yet. I would also like maybe an unmasked Peter Parker head, like a masked Harry maybe, and the web effects need to get better as well. Those web effects are not great. But again, I'm just trying to be picky here. These price points are not getting cheaper and I want to make sure I'm getting the bang for my buck. But this figure definitely does give the other Spider-Man Marvel Legends a run for their money. It has a great range of articulation. It is just down to preference on which design of Spider-Man is your mind's eye. So I've already asked that question, so you know what to do in the comments. And if you like Marvel Legends, then guess what? You're in the right place. Check out the videos tab, find the playlist, and most importantly, please, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, don't miss out on a video, and please hit that join button, become a channel member, either show some love or join the members club. Much appreciated. You can follow me on Instagram at It's Dan Who, and I'm on Twitter as well at Dan Who Reviews. Don't be shy, tweet me, and I will, of course, see you on the next one.